A hurricane passed over the coast of Alabama on July 5th and 6th, 1916. This hurricane, with winds of 107 miles per hour, devastated areas along the Mississippi and Alabama coasts. This included much damage to Southern Railway property, washing out trestles and fills, and causing numerous traffic delays. As the hurricane moved north, it slowed down. By July 11th, it had lost its intensity, but was still depositing large amounts of rain over northern Alabama, eastern Tennessee, and western North Carolina. This rainfall saturated the soil and filled streams to high stages. On the morning of July 14th, another hurricane made landfall a little northeast of Charleston, South Carolina. It moved quickly inland and by the morning of the 15th had reached western North Carolina. This storm broke all previous 24-hour rainfall records in the United States. About 80 people were killed. The United States Weather Bureau estimated property damage at $22 million. Damage to Southern Railway property was around $1,250,000. Unfortunately, with the ground already saturated from the previous storm and with creeks full, flooding began instantly. In the 24-hour period between 2 p.m. on the 15th and 2 p.m. on the 16th, rainfall recorded at Alta Pass, North Carolina, measured 22.22 inches. At Asheville, the French Broad River was already at flood stage, 4 feet, on the morning of the 15th. The next morning, it was 13.5 feet, which was 9.5 feet above flood stage. Within an hour, it rose 5.1 more feet, and at 10 a.m., the bridge that had the gauge washed away. The river was estimated to crest at 21 feet. Water in the passenger station was several feet deep. All trackage in the yard was covered. One passenger train left Asheville at 6:10 a.m. on the 16th, but this was the last train to move over the Knoxville to Asheville, Asheville to Spartanburg, or Asheville to Salisbury lines for 2 weeks. The flood caused massive landslides in the mountainous areas. Entire fills were washed out, leaving tracks suspended in midair. Bridges were washed away. Cuts were filled with mud, in some cases to a depth of 28 feet. Tunnels filled in with logs, stones, and mud. The line from Asheville to Old Fort was especially hard hit. The Asheville to Spartanburg line was just as bad, but the total damage was not as severe because the distance involved was not as great. The line to Knoxville was damaged, but did not suffer the landslides. The damage there was from washouts due to the high level of the French Broad River. Interestingly, the Murphy Branch was exempt from flood damage. Throughout this entire time, it remained the only way into Asheville by rail. Thus, this one line supplied the city of Asheville and surrounding communities with food, clothing, and supplies for rebuilding. It also provided the only route of supplies to rebuild the other 3 lines serving Asheville. Of course, rail traffic over the Murphy Branch had to come by way of the Louisville and Nashville at Murphy. Their Murphy line came from Blue Ridge, Georgia, where it connected with the old main line between Etowah, Tennessee, and Marietta, Georgia. This railroad had steep grades and sharp turns, including the famous Hiwassee Loop between Appalachia and Farner, Tennessee. In 1905, the L&N completed a new line from Etowah to Cartersville, Georgia, that bypassed the mountains. George Sandlin, an agent at the Marion Depot in the 40s, described it this way: "I had been a first-trick dispatcher since 1909, when Jupiter overturned his water bucket in the Blue Ridge Mountains. We had to handle all the material used for rebuilding the 3 lines and at the same time get in enough supplies to keep the people of Asheville from suffering. All of this had to reach the Murphy Division via Louisville and Nashville, whose line from Etowah, Tennessee to Murphy is just about as tough to handle tonnage over as is our Murphy setup. I do not know who had the biggest headache, but I'm telling you that it just about killed me." All passenger trains were detoured to Knoxville and thence over the L&N to Murphy. Each had to run in 3 to 5 sections to get them over the mountains. We had a train over every spot each 15 minutes of the day. Nearly every one of them ran an extra. It was equally as heavy at night. 3 of us handled those herds of trains without a serious accident. How we did it, I don't know. Maybe the Lord sat in with us at the table and kept things straightened out when our fogged brains were about to let them get together. If Mr. Sandlin means that each of the 3 operators had a train in their territory every 15 minutes, 12 trains were handled every hour. That works out to 288 trains handled by 3 operators in a 24-hour period. Without a doubt, the men and machines of the Murphy Branch played an incredible part in recovering from the 1916 floods. I'm sorry I couldn't save Asheville as I did 100 years ago. Southern discontinued all passenger traffic on the Murphy Branch on July 16, 1948, ending 64 years of service that had opened western North Carolina to the outside world. When freight traffic dropped off by 1985, Norfolk Southern closed the Andrews to Murphy leg of the Murphy Branch, and the state of North Carolina purchased the Dillsboro to Murphy tracks to keep them from being destroyed. The rest of the line is owned by the GSMR Railroad and Watco. Watco used to run SD-40s and long wood chip trains and paper trains, but the Canton paper mill was shut down later last year and the SD-40s were sent away, and the Murphy Branch is left dead with little action. The only industry is towards Waynesville, after Hurricane Helene. It made it a lot harder on the Murphy Branch, making it easier for it to go abandoned. Soon there will be no more industry, and there will be no more trains on this line that used to be so busy all those years ago. Unless a miracle happens, the line will become abandoned over the years unless it is taken over by the GSMR or some other railroad. May you try to get out while you can and enjoy every last bit of this railroad before the story's over.